Quiet on the set.
Quiet on set.
So the first step to installing the tapered column is to establish the column length. And we're doing that by setting a ruler on this plane here, the bottom of the column, measuring to the top, which would be 63¼ inches. And when we cut the product, we're going to cut it a ½ inch short. You'll understand later on in the video why we do that. But it is very important that we always remove material from the bottom of the cut. We never cut the top, and we allow for a ½ inch gap between the column and the roof line. So with our part laid out here, we're going to transfer our measurement over. And like discussed earlier, with the 63¼ we actually need 62¾ to leave that ½ inch at the top. So we always measure from the top, remove material from the bottom. It's super critical. So I'll go ahead and mark our 62¾ on the right side of the part. Then we transfer the tape measure over to the opposite side of the part, 62¾ Then we'll use a straight edge to draw a line. The reason for this is because this angle, you can't use a T-square or a speed square, or you can't just lay it in your chop saw and cut it with a single mark, or you'll end up with an angle at the bottom. So we've cut all 4 pieces, all 4 sides, the same length. And the next step will be to make the cleats, or the brackets to mount the column to the post. The way we do that is we align it with, lay it on the back side of the column, and we align it with the cut mark, or the most narrow inside area of the column. And with that, we transfer our dimensions to the face, and that'll give us the proper angle and proper length. We'll do the same thing for the base of the column. And again, that's the proper angle and proper length for the column. Now that we have our brackets cut, we want to align it to the inside of the column just to make sure that our angles and our length are right. These are good. The next thing we want to do is find the center of each one of the brackets. So in this case, we're 10¼ so we need 5 1/8. And we'll mark that center line. And that'll help us when we go to mount them. So the next step, we need to mount the brackets to the 4x4 so that we can attach the column. What we're going to do is look for the center of the column itself, not the center of this supporting post. In this case, we have 17¾ so we're going to need 8 7/8 to be our center line. So we mark the center line on all 4 sides. And then we'll use a level to plumb the line. Again, we're not worried about the 4x4. We're worried about the column itself. So with the center lines established on all 4 sides, the next step is to mount the brackets or cleats. A couple of things to remember. We always want the narrow side to go up to match the taper. So we're just going to match center line to center line. We'll do the same thing on the other side. When mounting the top support cleats, ensure that you maintain that ½ inch spacing at the top of the column. One thing to note on the cleats, you want the top cleats and the bottom cleats running in opposite directions. This will lock the column in position and ensure that it's centered. We're going to assemble 3 sides. So these first joints won't be glued. They're just there to support the part while we glue the three sides together. Using PVC cement, just put a bead in the groove. So while we're waiting on the glue to set up on the column, I thought I'd share a little tip that I use. I take masking tape, put little ID marks where we want to put our fasteners into the brackets. So with the column installed, we've ensured we have the proper spacing, the proper 1/2 inch at the top. We'll glue the 4th side on. We want to do this prior to installing the screws, just so that we ensure everything lines up properly. So after the glue is cured, the column's intact. It's still not attached to the cleats. So the trim that we're going to be putting on here, we want to make a little ID mark just on the film. And any screws that we use, we want to keep them below this line. That way we won't have to use the Cortex screws. We can use conventional screws, which will do a couple of things. That'll give us the ability to back it out, move it, make adjustments if required. So I'm just going to make sure that we're centered. Just put a little ID mark so we know where it needs to be. These corners are a little bit sharp to touch, and there can be times when there may be a slight gap. But you have a highly specialized burnishing tool in about any bit driver. What we do is use the radius of the lock and just simply drag it down the corner of the joint. And it creates a nice radius, softens. If you have any little sharpness or uncomfortable feel, just a light fine grit sanding pad will remove the little tag on there. But we do this to all 4 corners prior to putting on the trims. So for the capital or the crown, we've given you a pre-assembled, 3 sides are pre-assembled, and we've also provided cleats. And these cleats is the reason we had to leave the 1/2 inch at the top. So what that's going to do is allow us a place to put our glue, and we're actually using a construction adhesive. So it should hang there while you're prepping the 4th piece. And on the 4th piece, we've got to work 2 corners. There's no way we can do that simultaneously, so we'll use a CA glue in conjunction with PVC on one joint, and on the other one we're going to use PVC cement only. So for the base of the kit, it comes with 4 individual pieces. And the reason for that is they're pre-cut for the column if the column is not cut at the bottom or if the length is not changed. But obviously we cut ours off, and so it's too long. So to establish the length that it needs to be cut, sometimes that can be difficult with the taper of the column. But the solution that we've come up with is by placing the 2 pieces on the outside edges and measuring across, come up 14 3/8. So that'll be the outside to outside measurement for all of our pieces. So we've pre-assembled 3 sides using the CA glue, PVC cement. It allowed it to set, get fairly solid. So with the same technique we did on the top, we'll just slide this in place. We're going to use the CA glue, PVC cement on this joint, PVC cement only on this joint. Now that the joints have set up, everything is solidified, we can slide this up, apply a little PVC cement, seat it on the base. If there's any slight adjustments or anything that needs to be made just to ensure that it's plumb square, we'll do that now. But with that, the job's complete.